We all come across a lot of different books, and before starting a book, you better make sure it's worth your time. Is it just me? But I really hate it if I started the book and in the middle of the book it starts to get really boring. On one side I want to finish the book, but on the other side it's just so boring. So that this doesn't happen, I have my 3 recommendations of the books that changed my life. I really don't know where to start with this one. It's Frankie by Jochen, Gutsch and Maxim. This has been the best book I ever read. It doesn't just have a beautiful cover, it's amazing. Let me try to explain why. Okay, get ready. Detail 1, there is a man. Detail 2, he is standing on a chair. Detail 3, from the ceiling is a thread hanging. Detail 4, the thread is wrapped around the neck. This is a story told by Frankie, and Frankie is a male cat. And everything written in this book is told by his perspective, which makes for very interesting viewing points and new angles we haven't seen before. His previous owner, an old lady, one day just fell on the floor and didn't get up anymore. Then she got picked up by a car with flashing lights, and Frankie has never seen her again. You understand what I mean? Because on how it's written, it really gives you a new perspective on life. One day he passes by an old house and he sees the scene I just have described with the details. This story involves a man called Gold, and Gold is in a very deep depression and cannot really move on with his life. And Frankie doesn't understand why. Because of course Frankie is a cat, he doesn't know when someone has depression or is suicidal. And this is the moment this book really takes off. This book is written humorously, and it really finds the fine line in between being funny but also being serious, because it is about depression and suicide. I love the humor of the book, but I've heard from other people they don't really like it. So it might depend on yourself. But I really enjoyed this book so much, and I read it in a very short time because it's not that thick. I really don't want to spoil too much about this book because you should have your own experience with it. But there is one bad part about it. Currently, this book is only available in German, but I guess from the attention it's getting, it's likely that it will be translated to English as well. And I must admit, I cried at the end of the book. And I'm not that emotional person. I have here my favorite quote of the book, and this has followed me every day since I read it. Hold on. Can it be that you sleep too little and think too much? When you see too much of the world and reflect on it too much, I don't know, maybe it makes you sick? And you look darkly at life? But I am just a cat. Think what you want. This book was a life changer. No book has impacted me as much as The New Earth from Eckhart Tolle. This is a book I want to read every year. Speaking of which, I haven't read it actually this year yet. It's a very spiritual book, but put into the new age. It has similar teachings to Buddha, Jesus and so on, but they are put into practical terms. It's about living in the now. Everything else is just a fantasy of the future or a history of the past. We basically have 2 choices: to accept the present how it is, or if it's unpleasant, change something about it. How many times have you walked through a beautiful forest, but you have noticed nothing than your worrying thought? Try instead listening to the birds and the sunlight on your skin that's passing through the leaves of the forest. When you start to notice the world around you, it fills your heart with joy and your worries are most likely gone. Another big part the book talks about is our ego. We identify as our ego even though we are not, because the ego is never satisfied. It's the ego which tells us we are not successful enough, not productive enough, not wealthy enough, and not pretty enough. It's one of the biggest causes for unhappiness. This book talks about getting rid of your ego and not identifying yourself with it anymore. I highly recommend it. You give it a try. Now I want to give you my favorite quote of the book. One thing we do know, life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having at this moment. Think about minimalism, but in different life case scenarios. This is exactly what this book is telling you. Essentialism by McKeown. Is this the very most thing I should be doing right now with the resources and time which I have? This is a quote from this book, and this sums it up perfectly. The book is split into 4 parts. The first one is essence. It's really getting into what is a non-essentialist and what is an essentialist. The second one is explore. Here we start changing real life patterns and adjusting our new life. The third one is eliminate. Here we start to eliminate all distractions that are non-essential. The fourth one is execute. Here we start to put everything we learn together and apply it in our real life. There are many simple but nice visuals that clarify in every chapter what we have learned. I mean, look at this right here. I just love it. This book helped me to create more focus in my life and explain to me why sometimes I feel stretched too thin. And again, my favorite quote of the book. Only once you give yourself permission to stop trying to do it all, to stop saying yes to everyone, can you make your highest contribution towards the things that really matter. Well, this has been it. These were my 3 life-changing books. And now I'm curious, which are your 3 favorite books? And maybe you have read one of my recommendations already. I would like to know down in the comments. With that being said, I wish you happy reading and have a great one.